Every year at the end of the college football season, we have the Heisman Awards take place. This is basically, in a way, the equivalent to the NFL Most Valuable Player Award if you really think about it. It's given to the best player in college football overall. The award is named after John Heisman, who is one of the people considered to be one of the evolutionizers of football and one of the people who brought college football to a national standard. Every year since his death and the award was named after him, some of the best players in college football are given this award. We have seen some of the most talented players win this award over the last couple years, and in this video we're going to be looking at every winner since 2010 and see how exactly they panned out and how exactly they're doing now. Some Heisman winners worked out pretty well, the others, well, not so much. Before I go into the video though, if you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe to my channel and tap the bell icon for future football content. Also, follow me on all social medias down below in the description: Twitter, X, Instagram, all that will be down below in the description. Also TikTok if you want to follow me there. But as I said, all that will be down below in the description. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in this. So obviously, like I said, usually every year there are 4 finalists for the Heisman Awards. In 2010, there was LaMichael James, Andrew Luck, Kellen Moore, and obviously the eventual winner, Cam Newton. When it's all said and done, Cam Newton is probably going to go down as one of the best college football quarterbacks of all time, and this last season at Auburn proved just that. In 2010, Cam Newton passed ball for over 2,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions, but he did even better on the ground as he rushed for over 1,000 yards and 20 touchdowns on the ground. This success would lead the Auburn Tigers to a national champion, where they would knock out the Oregon Ducks 22-19 to get the win. Cam Newton's success as a college football player would lead him to be the first overall pick in the 2011 draft selected by the Carolina Panthers. While Cam Newton isn't technically officially retired just yet, he still carved out a pretty successful career for himself for the Carolina Panthers. Even though it was kind of cut short, he still had a better career than most people. That season that he won MVP, Cam Newton passed ball for over 3,000 yards, passed for 35 touchdowns to 10 interceptions, while also running the ball for over 600 yards and 10 touchdowns. Newton's career, as I said, was cut short due to injury, but at the end of the day, he was still one of the more successful quarterbacks in the league, and there's nothing much that's going to change that. You can also argue that him, Michael Vick, and probably now Lamar Jackson are a lot of the reasons why a lot of NFL teams value dual threat quarterbacks nowadays a little bit more. One of the main reasons why people love Cam Newton to this day, as he was such a dynamic passer and a runner, he could pretty much do it all. It's unfortunate that he couldn't do more with his career, but he won an MVP, something that most players in this league will probably never do. The 2011 Heisman Awards featured a number of talented players. You have Monty Ball and Trent Richardson, who are some of the best running backs in the nation. Then you have Andrew Luck, who was once again a finalist, but he wouldn't win it once again, and it would be won by Robert Griffin III, aka RG3. RG3 was a lot like Cam Newton, but I feel like Cam Newton was a little bit more athletic in the end. In 2011 for the Baylor Bears, RG3 passed ball for over 4,000 yards, 37 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions, while he also ran the ball for over 600 yards and 10 touchdowns. He would end up leading the Bears to a 10-3 record, which was ranked number 13th in the nation, and they would end up defeating Washington in the Alamo Bowl 67-56. Many people didn't view RG3 as a first-round pick coming into the draft. However, he would build his draft stock up, and eventually he would be selected second overall by the Washington Redskins in the 2013 NFL Draft. He would make his name known to the league on September 9, 2012, where he went 19 for 26 for 320 yards and 2 touchdowns, while also having 10 carries for 42 yards. He would go 9-6 as a starter, where he would pass for over 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions, while he also ran the ball for over 815 yards and 7 touchdowns. He would also end up being named the Offensive Rookie of the Year that year as well. This seems like a dream scenario for most rookies in the NFL. It wouldn't exactly end the way RG3 wanted it to end. A couple weeks prior to the Redskins playoff game against the Seahawks, in Week 14, RG3 would suffer a serious injury where he was hit directly in the knee by one of the Ravens defensive ends. RG3 was hit directly in the knee, and he would also twist it in the process. He would end up staying in the game. However, later on, he would start hopping on one leg, and he was taken out of the game. Kirk Cousins wouldn't manage to finish the game out, as the Redskins would end up winning that game still 31-28 in overtime. It was later revealed that RG3 had suffered a grade 1 LCL sprain, and he would start the next game against the Cleveland Browns. This injury would end up being costly later on. RG3's doctor, Dr. James Andrews, had apparently not cleared RG3 to play in this game due to his injury being so serious. Although Redskins coach at the time, Mike Shanahan, had basically said he was cleared to play. So not only did Mike Shanahan lie to the media, he just put his players' health in dire jeopardy. And as a result, the worst case scenario would occur in the playoff game against the Seahawks. With around 6 minutes and 20 seconds left in the fourth quarter, the Washington Redskins were down 7 points, and they were in their own territory at the time as well. Ball would be snapped. However, it would be a bad snap. RG3 would try to recover it. However, his leg would end up giving out, and he would end up falling to the turf immediately in pain. Now, I also want to point this out. On this touchdown pass right here, RG3 was hit, immediately went to the ground, and was slow to get back up. He went to get checked out, and for some reason, somebody thought he was good enough to come back into the game. I want to point out once again, remember Dr. James Andrews said he never cleared RG3 to come back in the game, and as you can see right here, there's a concerned look on his face. As a result, RG3 would suffer an LCL and ACL tear, and he would have to undergo surgery on January 9th. This effectively would kind of be the end for RG3, as he was never the same player after this. He would go 3-10 as a starter in 2013, and he would pass the ball for over 3,000 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. His rushing numbers, however, in 2013 would be the main thing that went down a lot. In 2012, he had over 120 carries. In 2013, he only had 86. In 2012, he had 815 rushing yards, but in 2013, he only had 489. He also didn't record a single touchdown on the ground in 2013 as well. However, in 2015, this is where the beginning of the end truly happened. In a Week 2 preseason game against the Lions, RG3 would suffer a concussion. At first, RG3 was cleared to play against the Ravens. However, a couple days later, he was then not medically cleared to play. I don't know how that worked. Kirk Cousins will be named the starter, and eventually Kirk Cousins will be named the starter for the rest of the season. And on March 7, 2016, RG3 would be released by the Redskins. RG3 would have stints on both the Browns and the Ravens, but nothing too major there, as he either was a backup or a starter for maybe a couple games. RG3 last played in Week 12 against the Steelers with the Baltimore Ravens, where he suffered an injury in that game as well. He would be waived by the Ravens on January 18th, 2021. Nowadays, RG3 is an analyst for ESPN with college football and NFL Live. RG3 has said in the past that he would desire to come back if the opportunity arises. However, it doesn't seem like any teams have had any interest in him to this point. RG3 has said himself that he wouldn't mind coming back. It does seem like he is doing a very good job as an analyst on ESPN right now, and it does seem like he is confident with that for the time being. And honestly, I think he's doing a great job. I don't think he should do anything else for the time being. To this day, many people still blame Mike Shanahan for the reason RG3 got hurt, and rightfully so. This dude already had a giant knee brace on him. You saw him go down multiple times, barely getting back up, and you decided it was a good idea to put him back in the game. Without a doubt, RG3 is definitely going to go down as one of the biggest what-ifs in football history to this day. The 2012 Heisman voting featured a number of talented players once again. Marquise Lee, Colin Klein, Manti Te'o, and the eventual winner, Johnny Manziel, aka Johnny Football. Johnny Manziel had a great 2 years at the University of Texas A&M. In 2012, he passed the ball for over 3,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. He also ran the ball for over 1,000 yards and 21 touchdowns as well. Stats would go down a little bit in 2013, however. He did have 37 touchdowns, but he threw 13 interceptions, and after having over 1,000 rushing yards in 2012, he would have 759 and only 9 touchdowns. Prior to the 2014 NFL Draft, Barry Switzer, one guy in particular, kind of basically foreshadowed Johnny Manziel's career. Referring to Johnny Manziel, he said, "I don't like his antics. I think he's an arrogant little prick. I've said that, and I'll say it again." A number of teams passed on Johnny Manziel during the 2014 NFL Draft, and Johnny Manziel apparently took this personal, saying he wanted to wreck the league. Eventually, the Cleveland Browns would trade to get him 22nd overall in the 2014 NFL Draft. Remember when I said Barry Switzer called him an arrogant little prick? Well, he might have been right, because on August 22nd, 2014, during the preseason game against the Washington Redskins, he would end up flipping the bird, and he would end up being fined $12,000 as a result. Manziel's first start with the Browns would be an utter disaster in Week 15, as he went 10 for 18 for 80 yards, 2 2 interceptions, and he was sacked 3 times with a passer rating of 27.3. He would end up losing that game 30-0 to the Cincinnati Bengals. Manziel didn't do a lot in his rookie year with the Browns, as he only started 2 games, going 0-2 as a starter, passing the ball for over 175 yards, 0 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, while also having 29 yards on the ground and 1 touchdown. In those games, he was sacked 26 times as well. Multiple people would continue to question Johnny Manziel's work ethic and if he could truly be a football player, including within the Browns organization. One player who was not named at the time would end up calling Manziel's rookie season a joke. At the start of the 2015 season in the preseason, Manziel actually looked pretty good, and it brought some hope for the Browns organization and the fans. However, this wouldn't last long. Despite throwing his first touchdown pass against the New York Jets in 2015, he would end up downward spiraling after that, as he committed 3 turnovers in that game, 2 of them being fumbles, as they would lose to the Jets 31-10 in that game. However, he got his first career win in week 2 against the Titans, where he went 8 for 15 for 172 yards and 2 touchdowns. McCown would eventually return to take the starting spot back. However, McCown would suffer another injury that would keep him out once again. He would make another start in week 9 against the Bengals, where he went 15 for 33 for 168 yards and 1 touchdown, but the Browns would still lose that game 31-10. He had quite possibly the best game of his career in week 10, where he went 33 for 45 for 372 yards and 1 touchdown. However, despite all this, they still lost to the Steelers 30-9. However, this is where the beginning of the end for Johnny Manziel kind of started. And remember those work ethic problems? Well, this is where it all started. At first, Johnny Manziel was named the starting quarterback for the rest of the season. However, videos came out where Johnny Manziel was partying in Texas over a bye week. As a result, he would be named third string quarterback behind Austin Davis and Josh McCown. After Austin Davis got blown out by the Bengals 37-3, Manziel was once again named the starter. The game against the 49ers, he went 21 for 31, passing the ball for over 270 yards, 1 touchdown, and an interception, winning that game 24-10. However, once again, the work ethic problems would once again arose for Johnny Manziel. He would sit out the last game of the season after apparently he had a quote-unquote concussion. However, it was then reported that Johnny Manziel was actually in Las Vegas that weekend instead of Cleveland with the team as well. It was later reported that he did miss a scheduled check-in that morning of the last game of the season as well. But then in February of 2016, it all came down for Johnny Manziel finally. It was being reported that Johnny Manziel was being investigated for a domestic violence incident with his ex-girlfriend. The Browns seemingly had enough with this, and their statement pretty much said that. In the statement, the Browns said, Manziel's continued disregard of their expectations for our players on and off the field had undermined the Browns' reputation, and that he intended to address his status as soon as permitted by the league rules. Manziel would end up being released on March 11, 2016. He would never play for another NFL team after this. Johnny Manziel does have a documentary on Netflix. If you want to check that out, you can. But if you didn't, there's a lot that documentary revealed about him. Before NIL deals were announced, Johnny Manziel was making over 100K off autographs. He almost got in trouble by the NCAA for this, but he did get in trouble, but he was only suspended for our first half against Rice. Manziel also revealed in 2014 that he was going to be selected #1 overall by the Houston Texans. However, he would say after getting drunk at a golf course, he lost out on his chance. Manziel would also reveal in that same documentary that he tried to take his life multiple times. Thankfully, that didn't happen, and he is still alive to this day. Now, I've seen a lot of people trying to compare Caleb Williams to Johnny Manziel over the last couple weeks that I've been seeing about Caleb Williams, but here's what people don't get. Johnny Manziel was a bust because he didn't care about football. He wanted to party and do everything other than football. That was pretty much it. Talent was never an issue with Johnny Manziel. He constantly got in trouble for not showing up to meetings. He apparently didn't know the playbook. There's a lot of reasons into why Johnny Manziel failed as a football player. And like I said, Barry Switzer kind of foreshadowed all this. He said his ego was basically going to get the best of Johnny Manziel. And in the end, that's exactly what happened. Manziel definitely has one of the bigger downfalls of any player I've ever seen in college football or any league, honestly. That's a very underwhelming situation all around. The Heisman finalists in 2013 featured Andre Williams, Jordan Lynch, AJ McCarron, and famous Jameis Winston. At the time Jameis Winston won the Heisman Award, he would be the youngest player to do so, but obviously That acknowledgement will be taken later on by Lamar Jackson. Winston would register as a starter in 2012, but then in 2013, he would absolutely explode, going 13-0 in the regular season, passing over 4,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions, while also rushing the ball for 193 yards and 4 touchdowns. He would then lead the Seminoles to the national championship game, where in thrilling fashion, they would knock off Auburn with 13 seconds left to win the game 34-31. Winston would once again go undefeated in the regular season. However, they would not make it back to the national championship game, as in the Rose Bowl, they would run into the Oregon Ducks, and they would lose 59-20, giving Winston his only loss as a starter in college. Winston would end his college career going 26-1 as a starter, passing over 7,000 yards, 65 touchdowns, and 28 interceptions. Winston would be taken first overall by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the 2015 NFL Draft. He had a pretty good rookie year for the most part. He went 6-10 as a starter, passed for 4,000 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 15 interceptions, while also rushing the ball for 6 touchdowns. He would do even better in 2016, passed for 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 18 interceptions. He would go 9-7 as a starter, but unfortunately the Buccaneers would not make the playoffs that year. Winston would regress a little bit from 2017 to 2018, going 6-16 as a starter, passed for 19 touchdowns in both of those years. But Winston in 2019 would make history for all the wrong reasons. He would go 7-9 as a starter, passed for over 5,000 yards, 33 touchdowns, but also 30 interceptions. He became the first quarterback ever to join the 30 for 30 club. 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. The only quarterback to this point to ever do that. Obviously, he would not be brought back by the Buccaneers in 2020, as they would go on to sign Tom Brady. Winston is currently with the New Orleans Saints, where he actually had a pretty good year in 2021. He went 5-2 as a starter, passed for over 1,000 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Unfortunately, Winston's season was cut short due to a torn ACL. Primarily, though, he has been a backup quarterback during his time with the New Orleans Saints. I don't think Jameis Winston was a bust. However, he obviously did not live up to the hype as a first overall pick. He had a few solid years with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and maybe if he didn't tear his ACL in 2021, he could have did something with the Saints. But unfortunately, we'll never know. In 2017 and 2018, obviously, he regressed a little bit, and then in 2019, he had that 30 for 30 year, which kind of labeled him a turnover machine, basically. In the end, Winston was just more of an outright disappointment than an outright bust. The Heisman finalists in 2014 were Trevon Boykin, Amari Cooper, Melvin Gordon, and the eventual winner, Marcus Mariota. Mariota would start 3 years at the University of Oregon, going 36-5 as a starter. His best year, however, would come in 2014, where he passed for over 4,000 yards, 42 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions, passed over 700 yards, and 15 touchdowns, going 13-2 as a starter. He would lead the Oregon Ducks all the way to the national championship game, where in the process, they gave Jameis Winston his first loss as a starter. However, they will lose to the Ohio State Buckeyes 59-20. Mariota will be taken second overall by the Tennessee Titans in the 2015 NFL Draft, ironically, right behind Jameis Winston. Speaking of Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota's first game will be against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where he was almost perfect in that game, only throwing 2 incompletions, passed for over 200 yards and 4 touchdowns, leading the Tennessee Titans to a 42-14 victory over the Buccaneers. Overall that year, though, Marcus Mariota would pass for over 2,000 yards, 19 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, rush for over 200 yards, and 2 touchdowns, going 3-9 as a starter. Mariota would improve in 2016, going 8-7 as a starter, passed for over 3,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. However, his season was cut short in week 16 after he fractured his fibula against the Jaguars, putting him out for the rest of the season. Mariota will lead his team to the playoffs in 2017, where they would take on the Kansas City Chiefs in the first round. Despite being down 21-3 at halftime, Mariota would lead his team back, and they would win the game 22-21 after the Ryan Sucker field goal. But that comeback was probably not the most infamous thing that happened in that game. In that game, Mariota threw a pass. However, it was batted down by Darrelle Revis. Mariota caught it back and ran in for the touchdown. He became only the second player to catch his own pass for a touchdown. Brad Johnson was the last player to do it before that point. The Titans' playoff run, however, would come to an end as they ran into the Patriots, and they would lose that game. Would regress a bit in 2018, where he passed for over 2,000 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions, while also rushed for 2 on the ground as well. However, in Week 6 against the Broncos, Mariota would be benched. the Tennessee Titans were down 13-0, and Mariota threw 63 yards and 2 interceptions. Ryan Tannehill would come into the game, and eventually he would be named starter for the rest of the season. The only other time Mariota would come into the game was against the Texans, where the Titans had already clinched a playoff berth. He would also make a few appearances during the playoffs as well. The offseason, the Titans would hand Ryan Tannehill a long-term contract extension, meaning Marcus Mariota's time with the Titans was officially over. Mariota would then sign with the Las Vegas Raiders in 2020. During his whole tenure with the Ravens, he would have one game with significant playing time. In Week 15, Derek Carr would go out with a growing injury. Mariota would come in and go 17 for 28 for 226 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. He also ran the ball for 88 yards and a touchdown as well, but they would lose to the Chargers 30-27. Mariota would then sign with the Falcons in 2022. He was a starter for majority of the season, winning the job over rookie quarterback Desmond Ridder. He had a couple of good games during his time with the Falcons against the 49ers and the Panthers. However, before the Week 15 game against the Saints, Mariota was benched in order to start the rookie Desmond Ridder. Apparently, this was due to a knee injury that he would be placed on injury reserve later for. However, it is good to point out that Mariota was playing pretty poorly up to that point as well. Mariota would be released from the Falcons on February 28, 2023. He is currently not with the Philadelphia Eagles. In the end though, Mariota kind of has the same story as Jameis Winston. While he wasn't an outright bust, he was never really a franchise quarterback that the Tennessee Titans ever hoped for. He had a few solid seasons with the team, and he even led them to the playoffs. However, he never could really establish himself as a franchise quarterback during his time with the Titans. It seems like he had all the talent necessary, but was never able to put it together. The 2015 Heisman Award finalists featured a number of talents once again. Baker Mayfield, Deshaun Watson, Christian McCaffrey, and the eventual winner, Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had a monster season with Alabama in 2015, rushed for over 2,000 yards and 28 touchdowns. He would be selected in the 45th round by the Tennessee Titans in the 2016 NFL Draft. Through his first 2 years in the league, he would split carries with running back DeMarco Murray. He finished his rookie year with 110 carries for 490 yards and 5 touchdowns. In 2017, he would finish the season with 744 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. In 2018, Derrick Henry started to get more reps, and he would officially become the starter for the Titans. In 2018, he finished the season with 1,059 rushing yards and 12 touchdowns. He would also be on the NFL Top 100 list. In 2019, this is where Derrick Henry officially established himself as one of the best running backs in the league. He set career highs everywhere with 303 carries for 1,540 yards and 16 touchdowns. He pretty much led the league in every running back stat. He also had 16 receptions for 206 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. He will be named to the Pro Bowl and have his second All-Pro selection. From there, Derrick Henry will continue to set the league on fire, as he had over 2,000 yards rushing that year and 17 touchdowns, being named the AP NFL Offensive Player of the Year. To this point, Derrick Henry has been named the Offensive Player of the Year, made 3 All-Pro teams, been a 3-time Pro Bowler, led the league in rushing yards twice, and led the league in rushing touchdowns twice as well. At this point, Derrick Henry has more than led to the Heisman Award name, and there's a good chance he could be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. 2016 Heisman finalists were D.D. Westbrook, Baker Mayfield, Deshaun Watson, and the eventual winner, Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson really doesn't need a lot of introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. Lamar Jackson's Heisman winning season, he passed the ball for over 3,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions, while also having over 1,000 rushing yards and 21 touchdowns on the ground. He became the first player in Louisville history to win the Heisman Award in school history. Also, at 19 years old, he was also the youngest player to win the Heisman Award. That year, Louisville would finish the season 9-4. Lamar was close to winning the Heisman Award once again in 2017, as he passed the ball for over 3,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions, while also having 1,000 yards on the ground once again and 18 touchdowns. Coming into the 2018 draft, there would be a lot of people doubt Lamar Jackson's ability and if he could actually play quarterback. One scout even suggested that Lamar Jackson move the receiver because he wasn't quote-unquote athletic enough to be a quarterback. Here are a few bizarre quotes to this day about what people said about Lamar Jackson. Sam Gottlieb said he would take Sam Darnold over Lamar Jackson. Let's take a look at how that aged. Sam Darnold on his third team since 2018 and has not done anything yet to prove he's a starting level quarterback. Mel Kiper is one of the more respected scouts around college football. He said Lamar Jackson was not accurate enough to be an NFL quarterback. Well, Lamar Jackson is in fact one of the more accurate NFL quarterbacks in the league, as he's thrown for over 60% the whole time he's been in the NFL. So yeah, that didn't age well. Lamar Jackson has been a winning NFL quarterback the whole time he's been in the NFL to this point. He was a two-time Pro Bowler, a first-time All-Pro, and obviously, he won the MVP in 2019. Lamar is going to go down as one of the best NFL quarterbacks of all time if he keeps it up, and he is lit up to the Heisman Award to this point. 2017 Heisman Awards once again featured a number of talented guys: Saquon Barkley, Lamar Jackson once again, Bryce Young, and Baker Mayfield, who would win the whole thing. Baker Mayfield will go down as one of the best college football quarterbacks of all time, and he was an icon pretty much around Oklahoma. During his time at Oklahoma, he went 33-6. The year he won the Heisman in 2017, he had over 4,000 yards passing, 43 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions, while he also ran the ball for 311 yards and 5 touchdowns. He would end up being selected first overall by the Browns in 2018. He would make his first appearance in Week 3 against the Jets after Tyrod Taylor got hurt. In that game, the Browns were down 14-0. Baker Mayfield would come back, throwing 17 for 23 for 201 yards, as they would win the game 21-17, ending the Browns' 19-game losing streak in the process. Baker Mayfield would end the 2018 season with over 3,000 yards passing, 27 touchdowns to 14 interceptions. There was a good chance he probably could have won Rookie of the Year. However, Saquon Barkley would end up taking that award. Despite the fact the Browns brought in Kareem Hunt and OBJ, Baker Mayfield would regress a lot in 2018. Passed for once again over 3,000 yards, 22 touchdowns, but also 21 interceptions. He would have bounced back in 2020, however, going 11-5 as a starter, passed the ball for over 3,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, leading the Browns to the playoffs. The Browns would upset the Steelers in the wild card round before unfortunately falling to the Chiefs by 5 points in the divisional round. Mayfield would regress again in 2021, however, as he passed the ball for over 3,000 yards once again, 17 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. However, Mayfield was dealing with a shoulder injury that year as well. During the 2022 offseason, the Browns would trade for Deshaun Watson and sign him to a huge extension. Then Baker Mayfield would request a trade. He would be traded to the Carolina Panthers for a 2024 conditional 5th round pick. Mayfield, however, wouldn't have a lot of success there, as he would start 6 games, going 1-5, pass for over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. He did sign with the Rams, and despite only being with the team 2 days, the Rams would have benched John Wolford against the Rams, and Baker Mayfield would lead the Rams to a 16-3 comeback win over the Raiders. A 98-yard game-winning drive would decide for the Rams in that game. He would also lead the Rams to a huge 51-14 win over the Broncos as well, where he threw 2 touchdowns. Currently, Baker Mayfield is with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I wouldn't call Baker Mayfield a bust either, but I would say he definitely did not live up to expectations as a first-round pick. However, he is playing somewhat better with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, however. I've seen worse than Baker Mayfield over the past couple years, so like I said, I don't consider him a bust, but definitely a bit of a disappointment. Winner of the Heisman in 2018 would be Oklahoma quarterback Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray would originally play at the University of Texas A&M before he moved to Oklahoma in 2016. Now, due to the NCAA transfer rules, he could not play in 2016. He would play a little in 2017 though, but for the most part, as I said, he was backing up Baker Mayfield that year. He get his start in 2018, and that is when he broke out tremendously, passed for over 4,000 yards, 42 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, while also running the ball for over 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns. He will lead the Oklahoma Sooners to the Big 12 championship game against the Texas Longhorns, where they would win that game 39-27. Oklahoma Sooners would get a spot in the college football playoff game, where they will take on Alabama in the Orange Bowl. Unfortunately, Kyler Murray will lose that game 45-34. Not only was Murray a talented football player, but he was also a really talented baseball player. As a matter of fact, he was so good that he got drafted 9th overall in the 2018 MLB draft by the Oakland Athletics. But Murray would not pursue baseball long term, as he would choose football as his long-term career option. Now, let's say Kyler Murray wanted to return to baseball as he decides football is just not working out. He could do that, as the Oakland Athletics retained the rights to him, so he could do that if he wants to. Murray would obviously be the 1st overall pick in the 2019 NFL draft by the Arizona Cardinals. He would have a really good start to the season with the Cardinals, passed for over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns in a 27-27 tie against the Detroit Lions. Overall, though, he finished the season passed over 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions, rushed over 500 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Murray would lead the Arizona Cardinals to the playoffs in 2021, where he passed over 3,000 yards, 24 touchdowns, to 10 interceptions, while he also ran the ball for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. best season was in 2020 though, where he passed over 3,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions, while also rushed for 800 yards and 11 touchdowns. Maybe in the minority here, I think Kyler Murray is still a top 10 quarterback in the NFL when he's healthy. Murray's had to deal with a lot in the NFL to this point. A bad coaching staff, a banged up receiving core, and then tearing his ACL, so he just had to deal with a lot of adversity to this point. You could argue that Murray has probably not led to the hype as a first overall pick, but he has not been a bust and not even close to it. Really, I don't know what the future holds for Kyler Murray as an Arizona Cardinal. There is a chance that they could draft a quarterback, and there's a chance that Kyler Murray could potentially be their franchise quarterback for the next years to come. Really, nobody knows. Also, the matter is, I've not seen anything to say that Murray is a bad quarterback to this point. 2019 Heisman winner would not even be close. It would be the guy who had one of the most historic seasons for a quarterback ever, Joe Burrow, winning the award in 2019. Like I said, not even close. Mostly everybody knows what Joe Burrow did that season, but we're still going to go over it. He passed for over 5,000 yards, 60 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, rushed for over 300 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He led the LSU Tigers to a 15-0 record, becoming one of the best college football teams of all time. To this, he was a first overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft. Despite tearing his ACL in his rookie year in 2020, Joe Burrow has gone on to have a successful career to this point, having a great season in 2021 where he led his team to the Super Bowl and won Comeback Player of the Year. He almost led him to the Super Bowl once again in 2022, but unfortunately, a bad call would basically set them back from winning that. Joe Burrow recently had another season-ending injury, but I think to this point, Joe Burrow has proven that he's a franchise quarterback, and when he's playing at his best, he is a top 2 quarterback at best in my opinion. So honestly, that is why I didn't spend too much time on this, because Joe Burrow has already written his whole career to this point. DeVonta Smith will be the winner of the Heisman in 2020. DeVonta Smith was really an electric receiver during his whole time at the University of Alabama. In 2019, he had 68 receptions for over 1,000 yards and 14 touchdowns, but in 2020, he turned it up a notch. He had 117 receptions for over 1,000 yards and 23 touchdowns in total. He became the first receiver to win AP Player of the Year since the inception of it in 1988, and he would become the first receiver since Desmond Howard in 1991 to win the Heisman Award trophy. Not only did he bring home the Heisman Trophy, but he brought home the Blinkenhoff Award, the Maxwell Award, the SEC Offensive Player of the Award, and the Walter Camp Player of the Year Award. The 2021 receiving class was going to go down as an historic one, as you had Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, and DeVonta Smith himself. However, a lot of scouts were concerned about DeVonta Smith due to his small frame. Remember, DeVonta Smith was only 6'1", around that height, and only 170 pounds, so he was a bit of a smaller frame receiver. The Eagles, however, liked him a lot, so much they had to jump my team to get him. Yeah, I didn't forget about that. Sorry. My biases came out. The Eagles would come up 2 picks in the 2021 NFL Draft to take DeVonta Smith 10th overall. He had a really good rookie year where he had over 900 yards and 5 touchdowns. Last year he was good too, having over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. And so far this season, he's playing pretty good too. Has over 800 yards and 6 touchdowns. So for the most part, DeVonta Smith has definitely been playing like a Heisman should. Now in his defense, he's probably not getting a lot of yards and a lot of numbers because he's sharing snaps and catches with AJ Brown. So yeah, that's going to do a number on you typically. But he's proven to be better despite that, so I would say he's doing pretty good for the most part. Speaking of Alabama, Bryce Young would be the one to win it in 2021, being the second Alabama player in a row to win the award. His Heisman campaign, he passed for over 4,000 yards, 47 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions, while also having 3 rushing touchdowns as well. To the Heisman Trophy Award, he won AP Player of the Year, the Davey O'Brien Award, the Manning Award, the Maxwell Award, and the SEC Offensive Player of the Award as well. In the process, he was also an All-American. He had a few injuries in 2022, but he was still pretty good, having over 3,000 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions, while also having 4 touchdowns on the ground as well. Panthers would trade up from their 9th overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft to select Bryce Young with their 1st overall pick. To this point, he struggled, but it's not all his fault. He has over 2,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. Panthers have yet to build around Bryce Young, but they're going to have an offseason to figure out what they're going to do with him, get him some receivers, and fix that offensive line. Unfortunately, they don't have a 1st round pick, so that is going to be hard to do. Obviously, it's way too early to judge the career of Bryce Young, as it's just now getting started, but it's safe to say his rookie year won't exactly be his best year. And finally, the last one for this video, we have the 2022 Heisman Award finalists, Stetson Bennett, CJ Stroud, Max Duggan, and the eventual winner, Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams eventually started his career at the University of Oklahoma, but he will follow his coach Lincoln Riley to the University of USC. He will go 11-3 as a starter, passed the ball for over 4,000 yards, 42 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions, while also having 10 touchdowns on the ground as well. His final year at USC wouldn't go as planned though. He went 75 as a starter, but he still passed for over 3,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions, while also rushed for 11 on the ground as well. As of right now, a lot of scouts and analysts are projecting Caleb Williams to be the first QB taken on the board in the first overall pick. Me personally, I don't see him going anywhere top 5 at latest in my opinion. Who knows though, things can change and maybe I'm wrong. I'm not the expert on a lot of these things. Heisman finalists for 2023 have already been announced. Marvin Harrison, Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, and Jaden Daniels have been announced as the finalists. If you see my videos, you already know that I've already said that Jaden Daniels will be the one to win the Heisman Award in 2023. So that's my prediction, and I already know I'm going to be right. I have no doubts about it. But anyways, that is a wrap for this video. Let me know what you thought about it. If you loved it, let me know in the comments down below. If you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe to my channel and tap that bell icon for future football content. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. All that'll be down below in the description. And that's a wrap here. See you guys in the next video. Peace out.
Let's go. That's a W. Let's eat one. Let's eat one. That's a W. How many people want to eat a W tonight? How many eat a W tonight? Yeah.